hopefully have a good panel and lots of questions to go and talk about one of the most important parts about navigating change. No matter how many regulations change, no matter how many different things come our way, we still need people to accomplish the work. So that way, we need to think about new ways to find those people, to train those people, to hire those people, and more importantly, to keep those people. I was just talking earlier, look around you. How many people around you do you see have a full head of hair? It doesn't have any gray on it? There aren't many. We need to get more new, fresher people. Or we need to get those people who know everything and steal them from somebody else. No, okay. So here we are today to talk about keeping those folks. So we're excited to have you here for this panel. It's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing, which is navigating that change in the water industry. And that is our workforce. So we know there are a whole bunch of key members that keep those water systems running, right? Whether it's your manager, whether it's your customer service reps who are on the phone talking to the people, getting them hooked up, getting them to pay their bills, whether it's your lab staff, making sure those water tests are coming back and they're done correctly and you've got good information to work off of. Those engineers who you're in the lines doing everything every day, but they're the ones thinking for the future. They're the ones thinking for our growth. They're the ones making sure the old stuff gets replaced before it's too old. And then, of course, supportive board and council members. If you don't have them behind you, you don't have the money, you don't have the wherewithal, you need their support as well. So it's getting all those key members in place to have a successful business. But on top of that, we want to focus on the operators, the ones who are getting things done day to day, every day, and the way we're navigating challenge to talk about that. So it's all about finding them. How do you find somebody? There is no ASVAB for water operators. You're not going to find many kids who grew up going, oh, I want to be a water operator, like they want to be a firefighter or a doctor or an engineer. So how do we go about finding them? How do we go about training them, giving them the right information? We obviously have these types of events and we have basic training, but none of that's the same as being in a ditch with somebody else learning how to do it hands-on for the first time. How do you go about actually hiring them? This is a very fast environment. People are hard to come by, and there are only so many applicants around. So how do you get the person that you need? And then once you get them, how do you keep them? What are people doing to make that happen? So today we're going to have a little bit of time with each of the panel members for them to introduce who they are, how they got into the business, tell a little bit about what they do and who the organizations they're with and what they serve, and then more importantly, what's that mean for them for the water business. So in no particular order, Dean Sharp, who you are, what you do, what about water?
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon. Like Michelle said, I'm Dean Sharp. And a little bit about myself. I've actually been in the water and wastewater industry for over 40 years now. I know, I don't look it, but hey, over 40 years. And I'm here today representing the Texas section of American Water Works Association, which I've been a member of that association for many, many years now. And I'm here to share some information with a brand new program that we've rolled out this year for high school students. And but before I get into that, a little bit about myself and how I got to where I am today. So, like many of you, I did not intend to get into this industry. It either happens by happenstance, or like some of you, I was voluntold to go get my certification because I worked in a small community up in the Panhandle, and we had one certified operator, and he was also a certified plumber. And he could go make more money in the plumbing industry than he could working for the community. And so I had a boss that was older, and he didn't want to have anything to do with getting certified. And so he told me, said, Dean, you need to go get your certification. And I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. And so I go off and I get my water certification, and then we had a small wastewater plant. I get my wastewater certification, and next thing you know, I upgrade to my C's. And I'm thinking, you know, this is not a bad deal. I think I might want to pursue this a little more seriously. And so I ventured off down to College Station and applied both with the city of Bryan and city of College Station. And I actually got contacted by both of them wanting to hire me. And so I chose, for whatever reason, I chose College Station and worked there for about 6.5 years and ended up there as the operations manager for water and wastewater. And I left there. I was a utilities director for the city of Hearst up in the mid-cities. I was up there for a little over 4 years. And then I went into the private industry. And I've been in the private industry ever since, consulting and working directly with water and wastewater systems, a lot of which was managing capital improvement programs, trying to secure the funding for the improvements that were needed, and then going out and managing the design and construction process. And so about 12 years ago, then I went out on my own, started my own consulting business, and have been very fortunate in the last 12 years to get to work in some very important programs, both on the state level and with one program with TEEX. It was an EPA-funded program where we got to go all over the United States and assist water systems and provide instruction on the Safe Drinking Water Act. And I also work with the TCEQ FMT Financial Manager on Technical Assistance Program. Get to work with Jason and the group over there at TRWA. And that's quite the experience as well, because we get to see all kinds of situations, both good and bad, all over the state, and we get to travel and meet new people. Also get to work with the Water Development Board in a couple of different areas. And the one area that I enjoy the most is going out and conducting construction inspections for TWDB-funded projects. So one thing that I've always liked about this industry is the diversity in what we do. The things that we do day in and day out likely are not the exact same thing each day. And so as we grow, as things get more complicated, there's more challenges there. And as you know, there's never going to be any fewer regulations. There's only going to be more regulations. And so we constantly have got to be learning. And I truly believe that we are all lifelong learners and that we're going to learn something each and every day. So excited to be here to share more about our program here in a few minutes. And I'll turn it back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Dean. Sitting right next to me over here on the other side is Mr. James Fisher with the Texas A&M Exchange. You say it faster. Go ahead.
TEEX.
Thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is James Fisher. I'm the training director for the water program at TEEX. You know, we provide water and wastewater training for operators all across the state, face-to-face, live online. We're getting into some technical assistance stuff now. We'll learn about that here in a little bit. But I always tell folks, as far as how I got into this business, I grew up in this business. My dad was in water and wastewater, so as a little kid, it was, hey, Dad, can I come along? And it was, yeah, come on. And then after a while, it was, come on, boy, I need help, let's go. So I don't know if I did it willingly to myself, but yeah, I've been in this business for, well, officially 43 years, but, as a little kid, even before then. But I started out in high school, ended up back in the day when you could get a D license before you had a high school diploma. I had my D's when I was 16 years old, had my C's when I was 17, B's at 19, and A's at 22. So I got into the training as quickly as possible, substituted for years of experience to get that next higher level, and so I went into it full bore. And being in water and wastewater was supposed to be the backup plan. And so after I graduated high school and tried going to A&M in civil engineering, during the first semester I ended up taking 2 weeks off to go on a guided elk hunt with my dad up in Montana. So when I got back, I was a little behind. And then for some reason, after the second semester, A&M did not invite me back. So I had to go to work. And so at the time, I had C licenses, and like Dean, being there in the Bryan College Station area, I applied with the city. Well, at that time, the city of Bryan is the only one that had a job open, and so that's where I went to work. Full-time there, working in the lab, wastewater, all that kind of stuff. And from there, I actually went to work for Texas Water Utilities Association here in Austin when it was here. And then after that, been the last 21 years, been with TEEX, started out as an instructor and then moved up into the training coordinator and then training manager and now training director position. So it's been a lifelong adventure. I love it. It gets tough every once in a while, but what job doesn't? But it's just not a job. It is a career, and it is a profession. And that's, I think all of us up here want to end up promoting the profession as much as we can, and that's what people have to do, is consider it a profession, because it is. So more to come. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Appreciate it. Also, for making me say just TEEX. TEEX. That's
TEEX.
it. That's it. All right. Also with us is Jason Knobloch with the TRWA. I won't even try to say the whole thing there. Jason, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Jason Knobloch, Deputy Executive Director for Texas Rural Water. I didn't grow up with lineage of water. I was just kind of thrown in it like most of us. My wife probably hates me saying this, but I was kind of forced into it because there was a time at 19 years old, I was one of those stats that we had a kid on the way. And she said, I love you, but working as a supervisor at Subway making sandwiches isn't going to cut it. So I had to get a job, and she just so happened to find one in the paper for me. So that's what it was, the local utility. They needed a shovel hand, basically. And like it was just explained, at that point, a lot of us do try to look for someone that has a pulse and can run a shovel, and that's it. That's what I did for 2 years at least. But started there, local utility in San Jacinto County. I was actually going to school for IT. I was going to do computer networking at that time because that's where the money was. When I graduated high school in 2001, that's what you were supposed to go do. I had no interest in that after working in the water. There's just something about that industry, even though it can be thankless, it can be a pain in the backside. There's something about knowing people rely on you, and you do some kind of a servanthood to an extent that you are providing this for people, and I enjoyed that. I unfortunately did go ahead and finish the school out because I started it, but then kind of changed directions, started working on my licensing and things, and it wasn't quite that young to get my A's, but I finally got there around 2009. But kind of transitioned, I moved around doing, I managed 3 different utilities over the years, and then around 2017, I came on with TRWA to manage the FMT program Dean mentioned. So been there since then. So altogether, I think, 21 years for me. I still have a little hair left, but it's going. It's fading quick. That's kind of my journey in water. I enjoy what we do. I think the fact of just seeing how many people come together in events like this is kind of encouraging. We're all here for a similar reason. I mean, some of us just need the hours, and I get that, but a lot of us really want to learn from each other, and the networking and the conversations that you can see going around in the lobby, and even at the bar. I mean, a lot of work gets done at the bar sometimes. So, but it's just encouraging to see everybody here. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Jason. We're already seeing some similarities, right? Like there's always a calling involved, and there's the fact that we don't do the same thing every day, and I can absolutely vouch for that too. Russell, would you like to go ahead and give yourself an introduction?
Well, good afternoon, and thank y'all for choosing this session to come to. My name is Russell Hamilton. I am currently the Executive Director for Texas Water Utilities Association. Been there about 18 years. Prior to that, for 28 years, almost 29 years, I was a Public Works Director / City Manager out in West Texas. Started my career in 1976, and it's been a fun ride the whole time. Like James, my dad was in water. He was a water superintendent for a small entity, and I got to play with big toys like backhoes and things like that. And then kind of like what James said, it goes from being fun to being work when it's like 3 o'clock in the morning and it's snowing, and he says, come on, let's go, we got a water leak to fix. But that's part of it. The city management was something that was a challenge, you know, and I don't know how the folks do it today with all of the regulations that come down and budget, and everybody wants this and that, but they don't want their water rates to go up, and they don't want to pay any more taxes and things like that. So it's a challenge. But TWA does training for the water and the wastewater folks. We still do in-person training, which is getting to be a rarity. We can thank COVID for that. And we also do online training, and there's a lot more interest in renewal type stuff and online training. So, but we're going to go wherever the need is. We try to keep our ear to the ground and listen to the operators, what they want, what they need, what their decision makers will allow them to do when it comes to training and comes to advancing license. We talk to folks all the time that I know that they're capable of getting higher than the C level, and you ask them, you know, why do you not, you know, try to go up a grade or two? And 99 times out of 100, we hear something back to the effect of, it's not a TCEQ requirement, so my entity won't let me do it, or won't pay for it. And I don't know, I think looking out in the audience, I was gonna say something, but when I started and forgot about it. If y'all hadn't noticed, Dean and I go to the same barber. No,
I've got a little more glare though.
I hadn't been lately. It is a challenge, and we want to be here to assist you in however way we can. We get the decision makers in a room, and we sit down and we start talking, and that's how we solve problems. And that's what I like about this. So,
Thank you, Russell.
thank you.
Well, last but certainly not least, you've heard from a lot of associations and people that help people who are already operators. But we do have one representative who's currently operating right now. So Jeff Striplin, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your journey so far?
Yes, my name is Jeff Striplin, and like these guys, I got into water totally by accident myself. Got out of high school, went to work for an industrial manufacturing plant, and worked my way up to a lead technician. And we were working 7 days a week, and come in one day, and basically that was the end of our jobs. So I'd heard that North Texas Municipal Water District was hiring maintenance workers, so I went and applied, and that was a long process to finally get in the door. I had misunderstood the job description. So I got in, I'm mowing and weed eating and doing things like that. And one of the operators one day walked by and asked me if I wanted to be doing that the rest of my life. And I said, no, not really. But I said, you know, it's paying the bills and everything. And he said, well, we've got an operator position open. He said, it's on the night shift. And I said, well, does it pay more than I'm making now? It paid about $3 an hour more, so that was enough to entice me. So I went to work on nights, and it's been a very, very good career. I've advanced. I was lucky to work for an organization that recognized hard work, and they were one of those organizations that did not mind mentioning your name in a room full of opportunity. And worked my way up through supervisor positions at the different plants that were located in different areas across our region. And I felt blessed doing that because I've worked at very small plants in some rural areas. And then I've, that treated 1 million to 1.5 million gallons of water a day. Then I've supervisor and been manager at the Wiley plant, which treats 840 million gallons a day. So I've seen the different demographics and what those plants are up against as far as hiring and retaining operators in certain areas. And like I said, it has been a good career, and I've learned a lot. I hold an A water license, got a backflow license, I'm a certified instructor. Have done some instructing for Collin College Community College. work from some programs through them. I do some presentations for some of their technical groups. And then I'm the president over a rural TWA district. And that in itself was an accident. I started going there to get renewal hours. Guy that had been running it for a while asked me if I'd mind helping out. And he said, you know, we'd like to make you the president of this. And I was like, I was 20-something years old. I said, yeah, that's cool. Well, 20 years later, I found out why he talked me into it, because I'm still doing it. But that has been fun. I've met a career. It is
Yeah.
a career. I've met a lot of good people, and through my career at North Texas, I've learned a lot about operators, the needs, the wants. Probably directly or indirectly hired several hundred operators over the 29-year career. So it has been very, very, very rewarding. I guess I liked it well enough, and I've talked good about it. Got a son that's in high school, and he's actually worked for a local utility for a couple of years. I'm very, very proud to see him doing that. So.
Yeah. Can't convince my daughter to do this no matter what, but that's okay. That's okay. So obviously y'all can see these people have tons of experience and they have a wealth and depth and breadth of knowledge. So we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about what your programs do. A lot of the programs that your associations have talk to growing our industry. And talks to the workforce. But before we get there, I did want to, Jason, I know that y'all had mentioned that you're doing an internal survey related to the workforce and had a few nuggets you might be willing to share related to that?
Yes, so our national organization is doing one as well, just across all the states. They're still putting it together, so there's no information there, but we have been doing one for the last few months internally, and just for workforce issues, the needs. What do they see? Where do they see is the problem? What can we do to fix it? And of course, you know, we all have, looking at the surveys, and it was a very good response so far. We're still doing it at our area meetings and online, but you can probably guess kind of what the answers are. I wrote down just the top 5 responses on that, and of course the first one being the issue is pay. We have been so long without actually touting this, as it was said, as a professional career. This is a job. People look at us riding around in our trucks or on a backhoe, playing in the mud. I mean, they don't see that as a professional job or a career. And I think we've done a poor job, and I say we because I'm included, as really touting this. This is something, it is a career, it is a profession. You have to be smart, you have to be licensed, and you are responsible for the health of that entire community. If you screw up, there's some damages that's going to be done here. It's not like burning the fries at McDonald's. There's more to it. And we just had to turn that around. Now, I will say over the past couple of years, we've seen changes in pay. People are now competing with each other, even in this room, just trying to keep operators where you're at. So the pay, and then we even on that survey, I did kind of a range. So the average staff size was about 7 for staff. Now that went anywhere from a staff of 1 to staffs of 15 to 20. Just depending on which area we were getting these surveys from. And that pay range just for your entry operator was $12.50 to $35. So wide range. And again, it depends on location. Who are you competing with just to be able to stay in compliance, to run the system? So wide range there. The average pay was $19.50 an hour. I've seen a lot throughout the surveys. It was 20s, 19s, 18s, which is, I'm a little jealous. I mean, I was at $7.25 when I started doing that shovel work I was talking about, and now it just doesn't seem worth it. But at least we're picking up the pace. We're not sticking to the minimum wage. The common complaint is what you can go down the road at a convenience store, department store, and make that. So pay was a big issue. The second one was the generation, our generations that's coming up behind us. And it's kind of really funny to see the surveys and really what they said. And I won't say a lot of that because they were very honest. But the people that just won't work, the style of work, people want it to start at the top of the pay range within that utility. They don't want to start from the bottom because they just see what else is out there and it just doesn't compare. So the generational issues is kind of what I'm seeing there too. The location, some of these surveys were done out in West Texas. Trying to find someone within that square mileage of where you need somebody, that's difficult. And that's where they pay a little bit more because just to entice someone to be there. Rural areas typically don't have the amenities. You know, you have these kids coming out, they get out of high school, you want to try to grab them while they can, someone that's energetic, catch them young and then just keep them forever. But they want to see the city, or they want department stores next door. They want something, and rural areas just don't always serve that. So it's kind of an issue there of the location. The competition of other industries, of course, there may be more exciting things out there. So we really have to tout that this is an exciting thing. This is something worth doing. And even a lot of comments about the competition of like the oil fields, depending on the part of the state, really can't compete with that. But this is becoming the new oil, really. So, and the last thing was just the limited advancements. So if you have a staff of 4 or 5, when you start a new operator, where are they going to go? And that's just kind of the life of what this is. Unless you're a large utility like North Texas or something like that, where you may have room for advancement and moving up the ladder, then it's something you're looking forward to. They may not want to be in the same position all the time. So those are some of the challenges that we see, and that I think just as a group, as a whole, we have to try to figure out different ways of communicating how we can do better with each other, because we're all kind of stuck in the same spot. So yeah, that's kind of just some general information. I did take also a note of what is it harder for? Is it the hiring or the retaining? And I would say it's about 65% said the hiring part, getting people in the door. And then the rest of the 35% was really keeping them. Because you all probably understand, once you get someone licensed, they're already shopping, right? The higher or larger utility down the road pays more for that same C or B, or whatever the license is. So that goes back to pay. Utilities just have to put that in the rates, in the budget, that you have to pay to compete and keep someone in. So it's just interesting information so far. We're still gathering, so we'll have more context as the year goes on.
Thank you, Jason. And I mean, Jeff, was it you who mentioned that it made $3 more, so it sounded like a great idea?
What's that?
Was it you that said it made being an operator made $3 more, so it sounded like a good idea? Yeah. Not gonna lie, I moved from being a blood banking technician to being a water operator because it gave me 23 cents an hour more. Complete change in career path. Money really does talk, so I totally feel you on that. So beyond that, in the area of finding those new operators, right? Not everybody's going to say, blood banking is terrible. I'll go for 23 cents, especially nowadays. 23 cents is literally nothing. But Dean, I know y'all are working on a project to try and get new operators in the door through the SEF program. Would you like to give us a little information about that? Some people out here might be able to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. I do want to take a quick survey. For those of you that are utility in the room, how many of you are fully staffed? Not very many.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 5?
Yeah.
Wow. So I think that proves the point that we're always looking for operators. We're always looking for staffing in whatever aspect it is of our utility. And so we've struggled for years in asking the question, well, how do we get young people involved? How do we get them interested in water utilities? They come out of high school, they want to go work on a computer, or they want to get into technology, or whatever they want these days. But we haven't done a good job of exposing them to our profession and the various careers that there are in our profession. So, we've beat our head against the wall for a long time. And finally, we had an opportunity a couple of years ago. It was a small school district out in West Texas. And they actually came to one of the TWIC funding meetings because they are one of those public school districts in the state of Texas that are also their own public water system. There's nobody else to serve them. So they have to serve themselves. And so they were looking at some creative and innovative ways in which to attract students to their community to increase their enrollment in their high school. Because in Texas, funding for schools are based on the average daily attendance. And once you fall below the magic number, then you get cut off from the state funding. So they wanted to see, hey, could we create possibly a program where we could teach high school students to become public water system operators? And I just so happened to be on that meeting, that TWIC meeting, and I just also happened to be the person with the FMT program that had been assigned to go out and work with this little school district to help them with funding. And so, I said, okay, we need to work with you and try to figure out what's going on. So I get prepared to go out there and provide the assistance. And a couple of days before, I get a call from Suzanne Bernard with the Texas Department of Ag. And she says, hey, Dean, do you think that y'all could use some funding for putting together this high school training program? And I'm like, yeah. How much money are we talking about? And, what all strings are attached? Well, it's local money. I don't know exactly how much money we can pull together, but if you can get us a proposal within the next 2 to 3 weeks, which they had a deadline, obviously, we think we can pull something together. So we decided that, hey, we need to move forward to this, with this as an organization. And so we took the lead on it. Well, we secured a little over $70,000 through Texas Department of Ag to help kickstart this program. And so we started what is called the SETH program, Science, Engineering, Technology, and Health, because we use science, engineering, and technology each and every day to protect the health and welfare of our communities by providing safe, clean drinking water, right? So we decided that if we're going to build this program where it could virtually go to any school district in the state of Texas, it's going to have to be virtual training. And because of COVID, we'd kind of had a little experience with that. But we knew that, hey, we're going to have to do it in a format in which any school district in the state of Texas could go out and latch onto it, opt into the program, and they could present the training to the students. So we worked with TEEX, Texas Engineering Extension Service. We entered into a memo of understanding with them that we would be allowed to use the basic water manual. We wouldn't have to create our own curriculum. It's been done several times before. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel, so we entered into this memo of understanding that we would develop this program for high school students only. So we don't want to, we've got several service providers up here that can do the training for our adult education. We did not want to get into that part of it. So we said, okay, high school training only. So over the next couple of years, we actually brought in subject matter experts from all over the state of Texas here to Austin. We put them in a studio, and we had each one of them do each of the chapters in the basic water manual. And so as a part of that, we had one of our members working on the program who was a middle school teacher, and she told us straight up, y'all are not going to keep students' attention for 45 minutes by them just sitting there looking at a video and a talking head up there. You're going to have to break it up. You're going to have to make it interesting. And so we came up with the idea of, okay, well, we'll throw in what we call brain breaks. Just a little pause from the curriculum side of it, and to then go look at maybe some field activities that's going on that we're involved with each and every day. Or maybe it's, we have what's called Water Geek videos. They're animated videos about how water gets to your house and how wastewater goes down the drain, so on and so forth. We also did interviews with some young operators to show that why they got in the industry and what they like about the industry. So we broke it up, and the reason that we broke it up into 45-minute segments is because it fits within a typical classroom period within any school district. So we developed the modules into something just slightly less than 45 minutes. The school districts now, we did pilot the program in Pflugerville in June of this year. And they have a summer academy where students opt in to go into the summer academy and getting their at least completing the course and having the opportunity to take the Class D exam. And so we decided, working with Pflugerville ISD and the other partners with the Summer Academy, that we would use the Seth course content for the basic water. And so we did that. And the Academy is an interesting thing because it also offers the opportunity for those students to go out and take tours of different facilities. We did 4 different tours. 2 of them were wastewater plants. They really like wastewater plants. And the reason is because they can see what the water looks like coming in and what it looks like going out. And so they really grasp on to the process. And so we went through the academy. We actually had 13 students that successfully completed the academy and took their exam. And I'm happy to say that we've got 7 new operators in the state of Texas because of that summer academy in Pflugerville. So now that we've piloted it, we have tweaked some things within the program, and now it's being launched free of charge to any school district in the state of Texas. All they have to do is go to the TAWW webpage, and under training, they can go to the Seth webpage, and they can opt into the program. There they will be given a password where they can actually access the modules and go through those modules at whatever pace they choose. If they want to get it knocked out in a 2-3 week period, so be it. If they want to spread it out over the course of the year or half a year, so be it. It's self-paced. And one of the things in working with TCEQ Occupational Licensing Group is that they wanted us to put in place where school districts could not fast forward through the course content, and they can't skip. So these things have to be done sequentially, and they have to be done completely. And then once the school district goes through and successfully has students that complete it, then they would verify back through the TAWW website. These students have completed the course. We will then notify TCEQ that these students are now eligible to apply for either the provisional Class D, and I'll talk about that here in a few minutes, or just the traditional Class D. And so the only cost there is to a student is that application fee. And that's because that the state of Texas, TCEQ, cannot waive those fees for anyone. So what we have heard in talking with school districts at the various conferences, I was at the Ag Teacher Conference in July, and the week before that I was at the Career Tech Educators Conference in Fort Worth. And so what I do know is that some school districts, many school districts actually, they do have funding in their CTE programs that they can pay for the industry-based certifications for the students. And whenever you start talking about industry-based certifications to school districts, their eyes light up because they can get credit for those and they get recognized for those. So it's actually something that we feel is a win-win both for school districts as well as you as local utilities, because quite honestly, we have done this and are doing this for local utilities to grow their own, to get students involved early on, get them interested, and latch on to them and let them figure out what career path they want to take as they advance through this industry. So I could go on for an hour and a half, literally, about the program, but I want to leave Russell and the rest of them some time. Anyway, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I've got more information. I've got some, we call them poker chips. They're tokens that have the QR code on it that will take you to the program. So you can see me afterwards, and I'll be happy to share anything else with you. And I think we have Q&A at the end of our presentations here this afternoon.
Sorry. With each person, sorry. So for those of you who are attending, just quick show of hands, how many of you have a public school near you? How many of you have potentially talked to your public school about getting operators through them? This would be a great opportunity to do that. It costs you $0 to actually talk to folks about that. And the ability to get some really free people who are already qualified. They're not just a Joe off the street. They're somebody who has actually done that work.
I want to say that with the city of Houston, I was there 22 years. We tried this program back in the mid to late 80s. We could not get enough input from the city for the training of people, young people in high schools. And I'm so glad to hear this, Dean, that this is really what's been needed for years. And if you guys could get hold of, like in the city of Houston Public Works and those people and the HISD there, I think they really need it big time. But we tried it, and we could not make it successful, but we didn't have the best program like you did. But anyway, I want to say congratulations.
Thanks. And we are.
Yeah.
We're working. We've got a lot of interest in the Houston area. A lot of the school districts that I've talked to around the Houston area are very interested, as well as Houston Water. And in many areas, we've just seen a great deal of interest in this.
Thank you. Got a mic here, so if you do want to speak or have a question, let us know, and we'll get a mic over to you. Following up with that, Dean, just you had kind of alluded to it and might have segued off, but during the last legislative session, Senator Perry introduced some legislation that got passed that helps encourage people in high school to take operator training. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that you've seen the effect of that so far?
Yeah. So as many of you probably know, Senate Bill 650 by Senator Perry actually proposed to basically remove the requirement that an operator have his high school diploma or their GED. And so it actually kind of removed the age barrier as well, because now, because of Senate Bill 650, the TCEQ has come up with the provisional Class D. And that means that students that aren't 18, you could even have sophomores go through this program, and once they pass the exam, they could get their provisional Class D. It's good for 2 years, and that would give them the opportunity to get some experience prior to leaving high school, and potentially they could come out of high school and upgrade to their Class C license once the provisional expires. Or did talk to occupational licensing if we had a student that just wanted to upgrade to his traditional Class D, and which is good for 3 years. Then yes, the answer is they could then take the regular Class D exam, which is the exact same exam, and get their 3-year Class D certification. I mentioned that the cost to the student is for the application fee. So for the provisional, it's $74. And then for, as you well know, for your traditional Class D, that's good for 3 years. That's a $111 application fee. And so I think that really opens up the door. The program there in Pflugerville, we had more they just finished their junior years going into their senior years than we did seniors that had just graduated the week before they started this academy. So we had 5 that had just graduated, and then we had the 8 that were juniors coming into their senior year. So yeah, I think that opens up a great deal of possibility.
Thank you.
So I've got a question out here in the audience. Do you want to let them go ahead?
Come on down.
Okay.
First off, we heard about it. I'm glad you got one group through. Congratulations. I know it was a long time coming. That group of 12 where 7 passed, how does that group passing average compare to the state's passing average for license level?
It beat the state average. Yeah. Yeah, state average is about 37, 38%. We had a 54%. There was 3 students that should have passed. They just barely didn't pass. And I do know that at least one of those has already inquired about retesting because they can take the test up to 4 times on that one fee. And so they want to retest and get that certification under their belt. And I'm really excited to say that I've gotten a text from one of the young men. We've exchanged texts a couple of times. He's now employed with the city of Manor and plans on continuing in this career, but also continuing on to higher ed and getting a construction management degree. But he felt like he needed some experience in order to really know where he wanted to go.
Reason I was asking was using the pass rate percentage by group maybe as a selling point to get you in more doors to get a listen about the program.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. And just real quick too, James, I think Stephen is working on trying to get the basic water once again approved for 1 college credit hour.
Yeah, TEACS does a lot of their courses for college credit through either ACE or ISET, and we're always going through the certification process with those entities, and a lot of our water and wastewater courses do get ACE credit, which is what a lot of folks use for college credit. So.
Just same thing I was going to think about was that those courses that TEACS does are related to the same courses that are required for your students there, and certain colleges in the state of Texas accept those training, and that would be a route that really would encourage, I think, and empower more people in the industry to get involved, especially in high school, because they're looking at future educational needs and benefits. So that was just exactly what he said there, was what I was going to mention about.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to Jason real quick. Well, not real quick, but move on to Jason. In addition to hitting people early in the high school years, y'all have also adapted to a new program. Would you like to talk to folks about how the apprenticeship program works?
Sure, yes. So TRWA now has a registered apprenticeship program. It's nationally recognized. Our national group, National Rural Water, worked with the Department of Labor to start this, I don't remember the date, but a couple of years back now, to actually get this apprenticeship going. So it's similar to plumbers and electricians. It's kind of new to our industry. We just have a licensing protocol, and that's it. So apprenticeship is new, and it's a slow start for us. But our program here in Texas, it's 288 hours of related technical instruction, so courses. So all the 20-hour courses that you normally take through TCEQ that we offer, as well as some additional outside-the-box type of training to get to that 288. It's a 2-year process. You get 4,000 hours of on-the-job training. So the employers that are part of this, they sign up for the program. They actually employ this apprentice, and they use one of their people that are already on staff to be the mentor. And it helps really track them through getting through all of the training necessarily for the on-the-job portion of it, so the hands-on. Throughout the 2 years, you get enough of the hours, you get enough of the hands-on that you can really acquire. You can, of course, we got to go by pass rate because they still got to do that. They got to pass the test. But you can pass and get up to 3 licenses, so the D, C, and the CSI. So for the water track, because we do it for water and wastewater, the water track, we think it's it's pretty important to get a CSI. If you really look at the numbers, we don't have enough CSIs in the state to really go by how many systems we have in the state, which is really hard to match those two up of how that's not working. So it's part of the program. On TRWA side, we have someone that tracks what they're doing, keeps them on the right path, lines out their classes and their courses to kind of put them in a strategic place to where by the time they get ready to take the test, they have fresh knowledge at that point, and really kind of, I don't want to use the word babysits, but babysits all the way through, making sure that they're doing well, if they have any questions, if they have tutoring needs. We've been doing a lot of tutoring for our apprentices here lately. So this is, again, fairly fresh. We've been working with some of the colleges as well. So Kilgore College, if you go through this 2-year program, you also they will take 30 hours of college credit towards your associate degree. And we're working with other community colleges and other state universities actually at this point, trying to talk about other options to where they would accept it. So not only, as it's been talked about, not only getting the industry knowledge and getting the license certificate, But those that, like me, later in life, I wanted to go back and get my degree. So it's kind of a double purpose there. And that's the idea of the apprenticeship, is that we're not just finding someone that knows how to just run one thing in the utility that can get that bare minimum license. This is supposed to be, and that's the reason for the 288 hours, it's supposed to be a well-rounded operator. You know, we're in the industry to where you don't need to just know how to run a backhoe or do sampling. You really need to find the people that are going to do everything, to understand both sides of it, the financial, the managerial, and the technical aspects of the entire utility, and be able to actually mentor the next person, bring more people on. With the industry going like it is, the retirees, and not getting the same inflow as we are on the outflow. I mean, just watching the numbers on the licensing, how many people are retiring versus how many new license, they're fairly close, not at the same rate, but fairly close, but it's not taking into consideration the inflow population. So we need more. We're kind of maintaining what we've had for years, and that's where the decline seems to be for us. So this is just one aspect. You have to be 18 years of age or older, and GED or a diploma. So this really kind of pairs well with the SETH program. You get started early. As soon as you graduate, you can jump into this. We do need utilities to be a part of it. They have to be the one that's actually sponsoring this to say have an apprentice. So if you need staff, part of the job of our apprenticeship manager is to help find someone to fit what you need. So if you're looking for someone, we have an application process that goes through national and then to us. If they want to sign up to be a part of the program, we make and coordinate finding you an employee. Of course, you still do the interviewing process. You get to pick and choose. You don't just have to choose whoever comes down the line. There is a minimum pay scale. I believe it's $12 an hour minimum, and there's a pay increases as the licensing and the projection goes up. So, but as we talked about earlier, 12 is kind of a base at this point anyway. So a few requirements to it. There is a fee for our program, but right now we've been fortunate that we have a lot of sponsors, a lot of our vendors are actually paying for that fee just to get the industry going. So even the vendors that you see in the exhibit hall, some of them have actually supported this program to try to get it off the ground. So there's really, in some cases, not a fee for the utility that wants to participate. The Workforce Commission is actually working with us too. They have funding for apprenticeship programs. So there's ways to navigate around having to be an expense to you. So it's all that training and education with no cost to utility in those cases. I don't want to say it's just free, because then I would be lying and we're being recorded. So, but there are avenues to get around getting it paid for, is what I'm trying to get at. It's a good program. It's, again, fresh. We've been picking up the pace the last year. We have quite a few. We actually have one of the apprentices here now. Roaming around, you may see his shirt, light blue shirt, and it says apprenticeship program on it. He's very new, just graduated high school, and now in the program. So you may scare him if you don't ask him a lot of questions, but he is here. So.
Well, obviously it is a new program, but what kind of results have you seen so far? Or is it too early to tell?
Well, like I said, it's 2 years. It has been around, so 4 or 5 years maybe nationally, somewhere in there. We came on about 2 years ago. So it's a 2-year program. We're coming to the end of having the first graduates. I will say that we don't have the results of that yet, and we started off with 1 or 2 apprentices, and then the next cohort, maybe 1 or 2 more, and then now we're launching. We're getting about 8 at a time, so it's kind of picking up the pace. But with that 2-year program, it takes a little bit of time, and we're coming to the end to where we see that the people going, the apprentice themselves, like the fact that there's somebody with them that's watching them, that it cares about what their progress is. Our apprenticeship manager is texting them, seeing how, hey, I see that you have your test tomorrow. Good luck. Do you need anything? Just someone that is there with them. The management side likes it because they can really just turn it over, and they know that the educational path is taken care of through this program. They don't need to figure out, well, when do I need to send you to another class? What's available? Who's offering what? It's really kind of taken care of. So that's the results we see so far. Being too new, we don't see a lot of the apprentices or information on that, but we're getting to there.
Cool. Be very interested to check back in on that.
Their position is apprenticeship?
Yeah, they are an employee of the utility, but they are an apprentice through this program. And I didn't mention, but at the completion of this program, they, again, are set up to obtain those licensing, but they also get a certificate from the Department of Labor that they have completed the apprenticeship program. So it's a nationally recognized certificate. So
Thank you. If we could transition over to Russell real quick. Russell, TWA has a couple of programs that I'm not sure everybody knows about, and I'd like to make sure that they are aware because they could be useful in locating and growing people. So the first one of those is going to be the online training. What can you tell us a little bit about what those benefits offer to operators and how that program works with y'all?
Yeah, so the online was kind of growing interest before COVID, and then whenever public meetings and getting together publicly became a taboo, then we started looking at alternatives, and the online is where that's grown. And we do 4 classes a week. We do all of the classes except the real mechanical, like valve and hydrant maintenance and all of those that require hands-on training. Pump and motors is one that we can do online now. But I will say this, online is a friend of supervisors and decision makers because it keeps people at the job site or at their work or at home or whatever. Whenever you send folks out of town to a training event and things go sideways, it's hard to get them back in a safe manner. And if they got to approve them to sit home and watch it on their big screen TV, it's a little more appealing to the student than it is to go to an in-person training. Now, saying that, I will say this. I can look at somebody and know immediately whether or not they're tracking with me if I'm in-person training. Online, you got to depend on chat rooms, you got to depend on student involvement, and not every instructor is good at sitting there looking at a camera and talking.
Yeah.
So it's got its challenges, and I don't remember one of them. Maybe Dean was talking about that you had to keep the student interested. The concept is not a challenge to them. They were born with iPads in their hands, and the technical side of it's not a challenge, but the keeping them occupied is a struggle.
Well, and that kind of brings me to the next thing, the monthly meetings that y'all do, the actual in-person mentoring and hands-on capability. So could you tell us a little about your member meetings?
So we have districts around Texas. There's roughly 50 counties that make up our districts. And for 2 hours a month, usually in the evening, like 6 to 8 or something like that, people can go and interact peer-to-peer at a meeting. They can get 2 hours of training, and I think it's a great way to grow contacts. You know, I wouldn't have been able to call our neighboring communities and ask them if they could help if I didn't know them. I mean, and the same way if they call me, you know, why should I go help? You know, that kind of mentality. So we get that. In person is a way to get around that. Unfortunately, again, COVID gets blamed for lots of stuff, but those meetings really suffered for that year that there couldn't be public meetings. Districts that we used to have 75 to 100 people at are struggling to get 20 people there now. And we're looking at things like recommending in the work hour, somewhere between 8 and 5, have the meeting, like somewhere closer to lunch or break in the afternoon, 2 to 4, you know, something like that. And then you're paying them to be there. So there seem to be some success with that. It's not everybody is jumping on the bandwagon ready to change up, but it is a good way to get to know your neighbor.
Thank you, Russell. Kind of switching gears a little bit, just a whole other demographic of people. We've talked about high school students, we've talked about people fresh to the careers, but we also know that there's an opportunity for those who are primarily Spanish speakers. So James, could you give a little information about your Spanish training?
Well, we've got one course that's totally written in Spanish, which is the basic water. We're very close on completing the basic wastewater in Spanish. But we have several bilingual instructors that can end up offering, the English version in Spanish. They can totally do it. We typically do those on a contract basis, but we'll also do, some as a regular open enrollment. They're few and far between, but the thing that we've had success with and has been a great benefit to a lot of rural areas, and that is our outreach classes, what we call the low cost, or GR. GR, is an acronym we use in the state, which is general revenue. Y'all have general revenue. That's your police, fire, EMS type stuff, which paid with general revenue funds. Water and wastewater is enterprise funds, right? You got to make your own money. Well, that's mainly what, the regular water and wastewater program is enterprise. But every once in a while, the state does give us some general revenue funds, and we utilize those to offer classes in areas that make it, or in areas where folks find it very difficult to attend, a water and wastewater class. They just don't have the ability to get away. There's one or two people. And so we have, currently we've got 11 different locations that we're offering these low-cost classes at. They're $25. It's a far cry from the regular open enrollment fee, but they are quite a ways out there. But if you're close to one, they're very, very convenient. If you're up in Borger or out in Monahans or San Angelo, Del Rio, that type of, those type of locations, you can take advantage of them. But it's one of the services we offer as a state agency, is to provide some low-cost training out there when we can.
I think that's a service some people, and just recently I was down at a Rio Grande hurricane workshop and came back, and that was one of the first questions people asked is, could we get people down here and could we potentially have some different training? So thank you for being a resource for those. I'd like to give Jeff an opportunity to speak from the utility side. You have day-to-day experience, in the trenches, hiring and keeping operators. Can you tell us some of the ways that you're attracting new operators and ways you might have found to keep them?
Yeah, we've looked at several ways of attracting new operators. We started doing career fairs. That's been bringing some operators in. Like I said, we do some partnering with the local community college. We do some presentations for them. We attend some open houses. That attracts operators. And just one of the things I recommend to everybody, if you're in the utility, be sure and wear your brand. I mean, when I go out for lunch or something, I wear my district ball cap, or if I've got a district polo shirt or something, I'll put that on. I've hired several operators over the years. I've had come up to me in a restaurant or convenience store, and it may be an operator that's been putting in applications and they've just been overlooked, and you can go back and pull those applications out. So I'm always looking for opportunities. I'm looking for unique opportunities, and these conferences, it's you meet some people there that they may know some operators that's looking for positions, but they're filled up, or they may know somebody's moving to your area. So those networking opportunities are very, very crucial. And even me and Russell talked about earlier, these TWA meetings, you get people from all different areas, and it's a very good opportunity. You have vendors come in. A lot of these vendors, we have one that comes to our TWA meeting a lot, even when he's not presenting. He's a pump and motor guy, and he's at a different utility 2 or 3 times a week. And he's been an invaluable resource on knowing the places that are needing operators, or knowing the places that might have an operator that's looking to advance, but there's no advancement opportunity there where he's at. And that's another thing I think utilities can do. I heard somebody mention it earlier. These small utilities that only have 4 or 5 operators, and there's not really a lot of room for advancement, go ahead and train those operators for advancement, because you never know when there is going to be that off chance that you're going to need them at your utility, but you're also giving them that opportunity to grow their career somewhere else. And typically those are the ones that will send people back to you. So that's some of the recommendations and some things I've picked up on over the years.
Thank you. And I definitely have to echo that. Early in my career, worked with some people. They had opportunities to go elsewhere, and now they've found their way back home again. They took that opportunity, and they knew it was a place worth coming back to, building that brand. Speaking of keeping, though, what kind of things have you been finding your folks need? What is it what keeps them around as long as you can?
Now especially, I know pay is important to a lot of operators, but pay is not the only motivation. They want to be recognized for the work they do. It's hard to tell them that it's a profession if you're not recognizing them for the professional they are. So some of the things personally I like to do whenever I've had an operator that does an outstanding job, I like to send them a thank you email, but I also like to copy the managers and executives above me on those emails. That way they see that not only you're recognizing, but you're recognized to the point that you're wanting them to be seen higher up in the organization. When we do tours with our member customer cities and our directors, a lot of times, especially the individual plant supervisors or shift supervisors, we are letting those guys lead those tours. So as much as pay talks to the operators, I think recognition plays just as big a part.
Thank you. Fantastic. I mean, who doesn't like to be told they're doing a good job, and knowing other people are recognizing that as well. So, well said. Thank you very much. I've seen a few hands that I've, been able to catch, and some I haven't been able to catch. So before we head into some of our other questions, I'd like to ask the staff, or the panel, sorry. Does anybody else have any additional questions? Thank you. Yeah, I thought I'd seen your hand.
Yeah, one of the things you and Russell touched on that you almost missed was one of the advantages of those TWA meetings. Well, there's two main advantages. I'm not a freak. I'm not alone. There's other people like me that do this kind of thing. And the other thing is those TWA meetings I've found in my experience as a chapter president is if there's an issue in the area, like a state law change or a new standard coming down, you can be so responsive so fast. That's the next month's meeting. Find an expert, get them in there, brief everybody up. Now the whole area knows, and you can still lean on each other to get through whatever the deal is. And in my time as a chapter president, that to me has stood out as the single best advantage of those chapter meetings.
I appreciate that. Any other? Okay, one second.
Yes, if I may add to that, I've been a member of AWWA for over 35 years, TWA about almost 50 years, and of course, TRWA is another organization. And I've gone and taught for many years, about 25, 30 years. And I have asked, usually in each of my classes, if people belong to these various organizations. And I'm surprised in certain locations in Texas where the people really, they don't even, believe it or not, know what the name of some of these organizations are. And like is mentioned previously, the networking that you get from joining these organizations is phenomenal. And the knowledge, like he says, of the new rules and regulations and so forth. And to me, the networking is really the key to really, publicizing and letting everybody know how well, that we are doing in the utility field. And to go to these meetings with the representatives from these different vendors and so forth, it has tremendously helped me in my knowledge about the utilities. And I just wish that more people were aware. I was teaching a class out in western part of Texas, and I was surprised how many people out there weren't even members of AWWA, TRWA, or AWWA, TWA. And it's surprising to me. And I wish that was more people involved.
I definitely have to echo that. I worked for a utility, and we were actually able to, on their dime, belong to our local chapter. And that sense of camaraderie, not just among the people that, I may not be on the same shift with them, but I see them because I go to that meeting. Otherwise you're just ships passing in the night or ships that aren't even on the same chip channel. So that makes a huge difference, I have to agree. Anybody want to add something to that?
One of the things that has been talked about is, the pool of people, where are the replacements coming from? And I think one of the areas that we are overlooking inadvertently is our military. The folks that are cycling through and they're getting out of the military, we already know they'll work for cheap wages. We know they're trainable, or they wouldn't be still in the military, and we know that there's a bunch of them. So I think that we need to get with the Workforce Commission, get with whatever programs that are applicable and throw our name in the hat as a possibility for future employment.
We hired a recruiter to come in, actually works for the district, and he was military, and he's working on programs to bring in ex-military, to even bring in some disabled vets, because you've got a lot of disabled vets, there's some jobs they can't do, but a lot of your general operator duties, they're not as physically demanding as they used to be. So you can get some people that's got some disabilities to fill some of those roles now.
So one of the comments that I wanted to bring up, I know a couple of guys in the room here, they're in the same boat I'm in. We're competing with the petrochemical industry. Being in Beaumont, there's refineries everywhere. That's what we have to compete with. The local LIT, the Institute of Technology, Lamar, they had asked me a couple of times, it seems like all your high school students that are graduating, they're going to LIT for process operating, because that's what the refineries are looking for. And they're totally flooding the refineries. And they had asked me a time or two to come and speak to their process operating class to let them know that there's other opportunities in operating out in the workforce other than in the petrochemical area. So, I think that was a big help by doing that. But like I said, that is probably one of our biggest competitors, petrochemical.
We hear that regularly, especially when it comes to the true cost of water. The ability to compete. If you're unwilling to raise your rates, even though the vast majority of the water is going to the production of oil or other petrochemical opportunities, then what does that mean? He stepped out, but we did have one of our intergovernmental relations representatives here earlier, and we've heard in several hearings that we've already sat in about the importance of water to the continued prevalence in Texas oil and gas. So it is a very important leg of the stool to keep that industry working in this state. So that's one of the things I wanted to reach out and talk to you guys about. So full audience participation, if you would. What have you guys seen make for successful training? When you do send people who are new, or when you're attending yourself, what do you like about the training, and what things could you do without?
If you look at the passing rates of the TCEQ percentages of passing rates based on the different license and passing rates, most of them are below 50%. So the issue I see there is the training that we do more academically from that perspective, or should it be more from the operational perspective? Because it seems as if some of the questions that are on the exams, and based on the passing rates of those, it should be more oriented toward some, you might say, operational perspective, the questions. I know a lot of it has to do with, I think a lot of the people who do those questions have input their academic engineering perspectives. And of course, we have to look at the rules and regulations, but that's one of the issues I see, is that some of the questions are just, I think, from the perspective of academia.
Yeah, one of the main things we see, we're in a smaller kind of rural community, and we have two specialty treatment systems. We have an SBR and we have membrane plants on the water side. So it seems like there's a really heavy load on conventional filters, conventional plants. Kind of as we see the technology moving forward and the SCADA systems and kind of the push towards the surface water with membranes, is there any kind of plan looking forward to update the operators and the trainings on that? Because it seems like we have a lot of new guys that come in and they go to these trainings and they really just teach to the test, and they come out of the class with really no applicable knowledge other than, distribution system type things.
Good input. Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely share that with our folks in operator licensing.
And I was gonna echo that. It seems like information isn't being updated as often from the training providers, because I know that the books are expensive, but it just seems like it's the same material over and over again. One of the things that I would really like to see from occupational licensing is for there to be a short little survey at the end of an exam, because the people that I've been sending to class for online classes tend to not be passing, whereas before COVID, when they were going in person, it seemed like the pass rate was better. So just to have a 2 or 3 question survey at the end of that computer-based test saying, who was your training provider, Were most of your courses online versus in person, just so that we can start getting some data to see, is online as effective as the in-person training?
So I just wanted to jump on the gentleman up front about the pass rate and stuff on the test. I think any test that you take, you should be able to know what you missed. And TCEQ don't allow that on their testing, which I think would raise the pass rate if we knew what we actually missed on the test.
For those of you who don't know, I am a license operator, but I can't test now that I work for the TCEQ, so I haven't actually gotten a licensing report since, I don't know, it's a while now, 8 years, I think. But that's good to know. I didn't know. The last time I took a computer-based testing, it gave me a knowledge of what areas I missed at least. So,
Well, on the instruction side, I mean, with COVID, it became a necessity. And then after COVID, it was, the efficiency. You got 300 people you can teach at one time as long as everybody's computer works, and that's on them. But I'm with him. Never underestimate the value of a good war story, because that one little trivia you remember 3 years from now just saved your butt at 3 a.m.
thank you. Well understood. And I mean, just by a show of hands, if you've attended online training and you've been into classroom training, did you find more benefit in, let's say, classroom training? If you, as a supervisor, are choosing to send somebody to training, and we all know the benefits of online training, right? Like, they don't have to leave, and you can call them anytime that you want, and you can make them do it in their downtime, 2 hours at a time, if it's self-paced. But is that worth the offset of what they get out of training? Would you, if you're the one wanting to train that person to fill your place, how do you feel about that? Anybody have an opinion?
Not if they're just going to use it on the test, and we're just using those training classes to check a box that we have to in order to get these operators to test, because it's a requirement to test to take these classes. They're not getting anything out of it. So we might as well just keep them close, train them on hand, train them on site to get them to be the operators we need them to be, instead of running plants that we won't see in our facilities.
And the flaw in the question, it's actually a very cyclical answer, because as a training provider, if the availability of having more students in your class is online, then you start offering less in-person classes. So then you stop sending people to in-person classes, and online becomes even more profitable. So the training providers start moving more and more away from that in-person. So given the option, yes, I'm going to send somebody to an in-person class, but as in-person classes are becoming less available in an area, now you're forced to do what you don't want to do, which just makes the problem worse.
Understood. Did you have somebody else back there?
So, as seeing both sides of it, as a supervisor and as in sending people to class, you look at it, you have to weigh the odds on budgets and things of that nature. It's cheaper to, like Russell had alluded to earlier, it's cheaper as a supervisor budget-wise for me to put an employee in an online class at my facility and a computer on the side. I mean, we have a computer set up just for online training, but yet than it is to send someone to a class somewhere that you have to put them up in a hotel, pay for their mileage, things of that nature. But what we're seeing is, just like we had talked about, there's a less pass rate out of the ones in the online training. So therefore, you're having to invest more into them to get them to pass the class. So it's kind of, I wouldn't go as far to say it weighs out, but it's still cheaper to do the online training. But it's just, I don't know, myself personally, I'm an in-person guy. I do instruct the classes as well, and that may be why I'm biased to that. But it seems like when you have a group of students in a classroom that you can interact with back and forth, that they get more out of it than staring at a computer screen. I've took classes both ways, and that's the way I felt, that I'm just, get more out of a classroom setting.
From a psychological perspective and a physical perspective, think about this. How do you learn? You learn through the senses that you have: eyes, hearing, sight, emotions, gestures. And the more you see those, the more the instructor can respond to and know whether you're learning what the topic is that they're learning. But if you can't see them, you don't see their physical responses, you don't have eye contact, you don't have the senses that are being relayed through that face-to-face, you're going to lose that contact and that knowledge that they would learn versus online. And if you look at it from that perspective, you can't beat face-to-face.
I mean, obviously we're a little biased because we're here face-to-face, but
my comment would be just the relationships that you don't build when you don't have the in-person classes. I don't know how many of y'all got the honor to hear Leon Holbert teach, some of the stories he used to share with us, and how many of us had onboarded in the utility fields because of the war stories that he would relate. And it was intriguing to us. We didn't understand it a lot of times, so we dug into it. So I think the relationship issue is very important, and I think that's what we're missing on the online.
So I'd like to pivot away from training real quick to discuss a little bit more about retention. And we've mentioned, or several people on the panel have mentioned, just differences in motivation and differences in work-life balance that are desired by people that are being recruited into our industry. So does anybody have any tools, strategies they've put in their toolbox that have been successful?
I work a lot with our public works department because some of the stuff we do for water training and specific safety issues also translates to some of the stuff they do. I think sometimes we as supervisors are guilty of not teaching them how to strut. Best way I can put it. Sometimes because of the equipment involved and the cost, a lot of times we belong to municipalities as employees because they're the only ones with that kind of money could set all this up. But then the trap becomes they start thinking of us as just one of their employees. You know, and yeah, I know I'm being recorded, but oh, hell no, we're operators. Y'all keep people safe. We keep people alive. And that's the critical difference. So I think sometimes we forgot how to teach them how to strut a little.
I just want to say I was fortunate in my early career to start at a city that had groundwater, surface water, and wastewater. And they were big proponents of cross-training. And so they allowed the wastewater guys to go work on the water side, and they forced the water guys to go work on the wastewater.
Did they make the wastewater guys wash their hands first?
Yes, you must be a water guy. But so I've always been that was one of the things starting out in the business that kept me interested because I was seeing different things. When I left that city, I went to work in contract operations, and I got to see just about every conceivable type of water and wastewater plant, good, bad, and ugly. So, you know, there's a lot of difference out there. And when you have new employees, if you're a big enough system to have different types of plants and different things, you know, some of the bigger systems, people get plugged in, they work at one plant, that's the only thing they do, that's all they know how to do. And I think it's good to keep their interest peaked if you can move them around. And I've also always told people on the smaller systems, cross-train your office people. Let them go out and see what's going on in the field. Let the guys in the field see what goes on in the office, because a lot of times those two ends of the business don't really meet. You know, and when I was out in the field as an operator, I didn't really care what they did in the office as long as they signed my paycheck. But when I got up into management, I had to take a crash course on what goes on in the office. So it's important to sort of make everybody mesh. And that's what I like about these types, you know, when we do our area meetings, the TWA meetings, is you can get people there from different backgrounds within the same industry that can talk to each other. And I think that's important to keep people interested.
I can definitely echo that. Having worked at a utility where you had a groundwater plant, a surface water plant, a wastewater plant, a reclaimed water plant, you never got bored because you're seeing something different all the time. And you met a whole bunch of different people when you made those rounds to do the things you needed to do. So I can see that definitely keeping people's interest. Is there anything else that y'all have been able to do to keep people's interest and keep them in your positions?
I think putting in like a career progression plan, that helped us. Before I retired, that's what we did in order to keep our operators. Because what happens is people get stagnant. When they get stagnant in their position, they start looking, and they will jump for 25 cents more an hour, even though they've been with the municipality for long periods of time and they got more vacation and things like that. But they get stagnant in that position, and they're not able to grow. And you got to find out where, so if you develop a career progression plan where they don't get stagnant, and they're able to make a little bit more money as they go and maybe obtain different licenses and cross-train. There's not one reason why not one operator should have a double license, whether it be a D wastewater or D water, but they should be having both licenses. So I think career progression is the way that you need to start looking at.
I got one. If you ever have worked in a hostile work environment, actually, through the career, worked in a couple of them, but one place actually had a couple employees. One just quit right away, and another one actually left for a $3 an hour pay cut because of the place that it was made. And so you really got to watch that as management and make sure gossip doesn't destroy your organization. You don't have little groups fighting against each other and things like that. And if you don't get a handle on that, things can get away from you. So.
Thank you. I wouldn't have guessed it an hour and a half ago when we started, but we're come up on the end of our time. So I did want to, first of all, thank you, panelists, very much for being here this afternoon. I appreciate it.